All right.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann Report for today. It is Tuesday, February 12th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the co-host along with my son, Joe Hagmann, and together we are the Hagmann Report. Folks, you're in for 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, information, and analysis. This is information you need to know in these perilous times. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com, and you can watch us as well. We do broadcast in high-def video on the Christians United Broadcasting Network. Together, Joe and I are... Well, most of the time, indeed. Together, Joe and I are the Hagmann Report. We want to thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us. Thank you for your belief, your trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. And we've got some current events to talk about tonight. Joe, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, glad to be here. And if the audio sounds different for the two of us, it is because we were hooked up through different equipment.
Trying something different.
Yeah. So... see how it works. We get a lot of complaints that you're muffled, that our sound is bad sometimes, and this is one process of elimination we're going through while we're waiting to get our condenser and ribbon mics hooked in. But anyway.
How does it sound, though? Folks, if I can ask, how does it sound? How do I sound?
I hear a delay from you, but that's okay because you're sitting next to me.
And I hear a delay from you as well, of course, because you're just slower than I am. So.
We got a lot of news to get into tonight.
Yeah, we do.
There is breaking news of the alleged murderer Dorner, alleged cop killer Dorner, and I say alleged, and that seems to be a word not being used by the media, as my father and I have been watching for the last hour events unfold, that this Dorner now was apparently barricaded inside a cabin, and they burned it down.
Yeah.
Now, assuming this was the man that they were searching for in the cabin, assuming he was there, his body, whatever his contents he had with him.
Well, now, just to be clear, though, Joe, just to be clear now, what they did was, according to the latest, is they heard a shot coming from the cabin, which they think came from the cabin.
Right. They were also reporting that there was ammunition inside the cabin exploding.
Okay.
As the fire went on.
All right.
But regardless, if this guy is dead, the manhunt is over. Now we need to get to the evidence that shows he was the person who carried out the shootings that he is accused of.
Well, look, one of the things that bothers me a lot is the use of the word manifesto. Once again, we're looking at a situation where, is this man a product of mind control? Now, as crazy as that sounds, and my wife, I was talking to her tonight, and she said, you could never take anything at face value. Because I explained to her too, and Joe, you and I heard this. The police or the media were asked to leave the vicinity.
Oh yeah,
to avoid getting hurt, of course. I got a problem with that.
Put up, and yeah. There were the sheriffs asked all members of the press to stop tweeting and to not broadcast live.
Right.
And basically to get out of the way. Don't stick your cameras in the middle of this investigation. for the safety of yourself and for the children.
Correct.
I threw the children part in there, but yeah.
Well, but see, we've seen this happen before, and even if we didn't see it happen before, it still would raise questions given the really the antagonism and earned, deserved perhaps antagonism the police might have against this suspect. Of course, he went on a killing spree for the against the police. But that's allegedly, right. But that said, how this played out at the end does remind me of Waco. It does remind me of other situations.
Yeah. Look at the behavior of the police before they captured him while looking for him. They unloaded on two women who were delivering newspapers one day. The next, or a different day, they pulled a gentleman over. He was white, apparently, from the picture they had in the newspaper article.
Right. And you could see that this guy's a big black guy.
Right. And they pulled this gentleman over, whose truck was a different make and model and color than Dorner's, the one they were looking for, same as the newspaper ladies. And they let him go, told him he could go, then smashed in the back of his car and shot it up.
Right. So now are we seeing a different police approach now on this one case, or is this perhaps gonna carry through, and are we gonna see this
all the time? Yeah, people running from police for speeding. Everybody around them expects to get your car shot up. I mean, really, we talked about this yesterday. There's a standard operating procedure when dealing with weapons. When you're an officer, when you're in a situation where you might find yourself in the need to use lethal force, you identify your target. You know what your target is before you fire a shot, unless you don't have time to see your target because they're firing too fast or firing at you before you know what you're doing. But in this case, the first shooting with the two women involved who were delivering newspapers, they just rolled up on the car and shot up the whole thing from the back end.
Right.
They didn't identify who was in the car. They didn't identify. They didn't do a felony stop, as the police call it, and that is basically they surround your car, they stop you, they make sure that guns drawn.
Right.
It's different than a traffic stop. But there wasn't any kind of traffic stop. The cops just opened fire on this truck.
Well, yeah, I can appreciate having lost a friend, Bruno Sobolewski, in Texas on August 7th or April 7th, 1991, on a traffic stop. But look, I understand, and he was a friend of mine. He was a guy that taught me how to ride a motorcycle or how to operate a motorcycle. Thanks, Bruno. But he was shot and passed away later that night from his injuries. Later that day from his injuries, and that was a traffic stop. I understand it's a dangerous job being a police officer. I understand that. For the good ones, I understand that. I feel for the police officers and their families, the good police officers and their families. Now that said, if you look at the condition, for example, of that car, the SUV that was shot up, it's hard for me to imagine police officers shooting inside a car with two women that didn't match the vehicle did not match the suspect's vehicle at the time. And the second thing, of course, the women certainly didn't look like one or two very large black men. That said, I've got a problem with this. And now my wife disagrees with me. She says, you're reading too much into this. But once again, I go back to the word manifesto. I'm bothered. I'm very troubled by that because everything that I've read about monarch-based, trauma-based mind control in general, I've got issues with this. The Unabomber may, look, I don't know, but certainly it fits the profile of a trauma-based mind control person. by contrast, so would this, or so would this gentleman. And if I sound funny, by the way, I'm hearing like this tremendous echo in my headphones, Joe.
Well, I can't help you with that.
Troy, I don't know if you can hear me. Whatever you just did, thank you. I appreciate that. It's better. Now it's back. At any rate, folks in the chat room, let me just go off script here. Does my voice sound any different? I've been getting a lot of emails saying that my microphone was very muffled. And
okay, we're getting reports of echoes. Some say the sound is so much better, but lower. You sound fine. You're coming through okay, Doug. Sound is fine.
Joe just zing, Doug. Yeah, I know. All right. You sound great now. All right, thank you. As good as you can be. And that's probably right. All right, I'll deal with the echo. And on this end.
Okay.
I'll deal with the delay. That's fine. All right, let's get into some things, too. Tonight is the State of the Union address, folks.
Yeah.
How many of you are planning on watching that?
I'm going to avoid watching that. I'm glad our show is now because I don't want to watch it. It is just a political theater at this point. There is no value. Okay, there is nothing of substance will come out of this. Nothing will change because of what is said or going to be said. And for folks who want to know what's going to be said, well, we can tell you now, for the most part. And what we're going to do here is I'll go to get this article from CNN pulled up. But the State of the Union address, it's going to be more talk of how we need to change things to become more aggressive in the cybersecurity area, how we're going to need to come together as a country, how we need to fix problems. And here are some excerpts from the show tonight, or from the show, the theater, Broadway, State of the Union. It's our generation's task, then, to reignite the true engine of America's economic growth, a rising, thriving middle class. It is our unfinished task to restore the basic bargain that built this country, the idea that if you work hard and meet your responsibilities, you can get ahead, no matter where you come from or what you look like or who you love. It is our unfinished task to make sure that this government works on behalf of the many and not just the few, that it encourages free enterprise, rewards individual initiative, and opens the doors of opportunity to every child across this great nation. A growing economy that creates good middle-class jobs. That must be the North Star that guides our efforts. Every day we should ask ourselves 3 questions as a nation. How do we attract more jobs to our shores?
Hey, how do we
equip our people with the skills needed to do these jobs, and how do we make sure that the hard work leads to a decent living? I just read it from a teleprompter.
All right.
I hacked into it and got it pre-sent. But anyway, he goes on. Tonight, I'll lay out an additional proposals that are fully paid for and fully consistent with the budget framework both parties agreed to just 18 months ago. Let me repeat, nothing I'm proposing tonight should increase our deficit by a single dime. It's not a bigger government we need, but a smarter government that sets priorities and invests in broad-based growth. So there you go. Basically what he's going to be speaking on tonight. But more importantly than what he is going to say tonight is what actions will be taken executively tomorrow. We had reports yesterday stating that the Obama plans to release executive orders on cybersecurity soon after the State of the Union address. But it's not just cybersecurity. He is looking to change. He wants to bring back mortgage. I'm sorry, what are they called? When you redo your mortgage?
Refinance?
Yes, he wants that. He has executive orders dealing with provisions of refinancing your mortgage and equality for gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual people. The environment. clean energy, carbon taxes, climate change, and also cybersecurity. So that's what was reported from the Hill yesterday on the executive orders that will be taken after the State of the Union. What will be released is, we'll wait. We're waiting to see.
Marco Rubio is going to be giving the other State of the Union, or the Republican side. That's my belief, and it's interesting. He made some headlines earlier this week. It was said that he was selected because he knows Jay-Z. I'm not going to get into that statement, because I think there's something to that statement that's just not quite right. But one of the objectives, folks, of the globalists, and I think that we're going to see this tonight, was the capture, or is the capture, of one or both of the political parties in the United States to place under communist and ultimately globalist control. Now, think about this. As with most of the communist and globalist goals, there's been so much written to prove the issues being discussed. Now, about this specific goal, there are numerous books in print that will prove the point that we don't have two political parties anymore.
No.
Okay. Now, if you look at the last 50 years, I think that we're seeing a prime moving force that's pushing this goal perhaps more than any other goal. The goals, well, these goals, the Worldwide Communist Network. Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, I was being passed.
We can talk at the same time?
Well, no, I can't. You wrote that note, and I thought, okay. But going back to the 1930s, Franklin Roosevelt reportedly told a congressional aide that there is nothing wrong with the communists in this country. And folks, think about that statement. Several of my best friends are communists, according to Franklin Roosevelt. That's what he said to the congressional aide. Following the Second World War, when the Cold War broke out with the communists, no politician would have dared to say anything like that. Yet, it's been documented that the reason, or that the behind-the-scenes treachery has been continuing, or has continued since the Cold War, and even continues now. I don't specifically care for Ann Coulter. I mean, she's okay, but I don't like her writing and speeches. But she writes in treason that the majority of the Democrat Party have all been soft on communism for decades. Now, if you look at the right-left paradigm, if you still subscribe to that, the right-left paradigm has shifted very far to the left. Everything now is to the left. All right, so
let's just quit with left and right. It's switched to totalitarianism. It has switched to corruption.
That's better. I understand that. But today we've got a president, or somebody who occupies the Oval Office, who agrees with Roosevelt and also has best friends who are communists. Obama has openly appointed communist, Marxist, Muslim Brotherhood members who are very close to communists in his administrations.
Extensively.
Right. But I think tonight, because it's the State of the Union, I think because people, especially new listeners, should know, because we're going to get some email tomorrow about the State of the Union address, and of course I think the new listeners should know that we understand this, that we're not partisan to the extent that we believe that in the right-left paradigm anymore. We believe that there's a progressive and a conservative. There's good and evil. Okay.
We're not partisan because we refuse to take part in a political or take sides in the enemies. Both sides are controlled by the enemy. Therefore, we will not take a political side on a Republican or Democratic forum or platform, and we need to get, as a nation, as individuals, as far away from the two-party system as possible. It has brought nothing to this nation except controlled opposition through bribes, through something that Doctor said in the National Prayer Breakfast speech he gave to Obama. Instead of the 3 branches of government, there are 4, the executive, legislative, judicial, and special interest groups, or corporation. Same difference. Our politicians in the Republican side, as well as the Democratic side, whether in the House, in the Senate, or in any position, are subject to bribes. They are, the House of Representatives is allowed to break the law and insider trade. These people are all part of the problem. The only solution I see, if there was a political solution to the situation we're in, is to take, a few of the most successful business owners from the state, each individual state, hold up a vote after we arrest all the current members of the legislature who need to be arrested and tried for treason, if found to be voting against the Constitution or the rights of the people. The only way to fix this is to get the best members of their profession, and put them up for election and let the people decide from there. Get real people back in Washington, from the bottom to the top. But I don't see that happening.
Right. But just let me say this about the State of the Union and about Obama's last 4, 5 now years, going to be 5 years in the White House. We've got a man in charge who apparently, like I said, agrees with Roosevelt. His best friends are communists. Basically, he's got a communist agenda, which it's not really a communist agenda. It's a communist agenda as a way to get to this New World Order. And I've got something to say about the Pope and the New World Order because this came together. And when I heard this, I did a double take. Folks, you're going to need to hear this as well. But look, as far as the Congress is concerned, in 2009, over 80 members belonged to the Congressional Progressive Caucus. You know what, folks? The Congressional Progressive Caucus is basically a communist influence. Of the 20 House committees, 11 were chaired by caucus members. The caucus is openly socialist, as could be in America. In other words, you cannot get any more socialist than that. Now, here's what I think is kind of a strange part to all this. The radicals, the radicals that are in the White House, they don't care anymore. Have you noticed that now they've stopped caring? They're not trying to hide their allegiance anymore to this agenda, to this communist and to this New World Order agenda. The former White House Communications Director, Anita Dunn, remember her? She openly bragged in a speech given to a high school graduating class that one of her favorite political philosophers was Mao Zedong. And remember the Christmas tree ornament that hung on the Christmas tree in the White House featured the portrait of Mao Zedong, the brutal communist dictator of China, responsible for the mass murdering of tens of millions of his own people. What in the world are these people thinking when they tell this really to our next generation? Are these people living in some sort of parallel universe, or are they so arrogant that they just don't care? It's in my research with respect to what's going on here in America, I found John F. Kennedy and Senator Joe McCarthy. I found some interaction there. Did you know that that Kennedy was himself one of the most anti-communist presidents we've had until Reagan? Did you know that? I didn't know that. But see, unfortunately, all of the Democrat progressives surrounding Kennedy were influencing and redirecting many of his policies. Now, Kennedy was constantly being heavily medicated for pain. Was he also being manipulated, perhaps, and controlled by this medication. He was a medical basket case. The dilemma for progressives right now is that all of the Kennedy clan were very close friends and admirers of Senator McCarthy. And JFK liked the fact that McCarthy went after the elites in the State Department. JFK regarded with contempt those people, even before McCarthy made accusations against the State Department for subversion. Kennedy had already aligned himself with the militant anti-communists who blamed the Truman State Department for the loss of China. Now, Kennedy said this publicly on the House floor back in 1949. This is what I found as I was researching this. So we're not being told the truth today in our history books. And there were some other deep personal bonds between Kennedy and McCarthy by the time McCarthy reached the peak of his power in 1952 or 1953, perhaps. I don't know, 52, 53. And not only had McCarthy been a frequent guest in high-end support at the Kennedy compound, but McCarthy also had dated two of Kennedy's sisters. The ties with Bobby Kennedy were forged when he gave Kennedy, Robert, that is Bobby, a job as minority counsel to his Senate committee investigating domestic communism. Now, Bobby would maintain a deep loyalty to the man he loved enough to make him the godfather of his first child. So JFK's warmth for McCarthy was not as great as Robert Kennedy's, but he still felt enough of McCarthy to walk out at the 100th anniversary of the Harvard Spree Club dinner. Now, we all know about Harvard, what these Ivy League colleges teach. But Robert Armory, who had been at the dinner and who later worked for the Kennedy administration, recalled in an oral history at the JFK Library that when a speaker had likened the McCarthy to a convicted Soviet spy, Alger Hiss, JFK rose to his feet and declared, "How dare you? How dare you couple the name of a great American patriot with that of a traitor?" And of course he was referring as the traitor to Hiss and the patriot to McCarthy. Now, this incident has never, ever been denied by anyone who is there, and it is accepted, by the way, according to my research by JFK biographers, as being true. And you might think, well, so what? That was like 60 years ago. That was a number of years ago. It doesn't matter anymore today. Well, as I've referenced before, the untold story of Senator Joe McCarthy and his fight against America's enemies, blacklisted by history. That's the name of the book. It's a pretty heavy book, about 680 pages maybe. In his book, M. Stanton Evans had said in his research of what was going on back in the 40s and in the 50s, and especially the 50s, when he was doing this research for this book back in the 1990s, the so-called Venona papers came into the possession of U.S. government officials and were opened up. They were made public only in 1995. So that's about 17, 18 years ago. Now, these are coded messages. By the way, if you don't know what the Venona papers are, they're coded messages exchanged between intelligence bosses in the Kremlin and their agents in the State Department in America, the very agents that McCarthy haters said didn't exist. Well, here's why I'm mentioning it. Because when M. Stanton Evans went to grab certain pieces of information from the National Archives about the Venona papers and about other issues related to the communist infiltration in the State Department, when he did that, they were missing. They were taken sometime in the mid to late 90s. Now, one last thing. And by the way, folks, don't you think that's kind of important? Joe, don't you think it's kind of important to think that even as of the mid to late 90s, that records about communist infiltration, and meaning New World Order infiltration in our government, was being taken, removed, stolen, purged from the archives? I think that's kind of important.
It's important, but it is now, sadly, standard operating procedure. All crimes and any reference to anything possibly damaging will be removed, destroyed, lied about, etc.
Okay. And now wait, just one last thing, and I'm going to tie Pope Benedict XVI into this, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you. I was listening to Hal Lindsey, one of his speeches, lectures. I don't know where it was, but I know it was back in 2011. Did you know, Joe, that Pope Benedict XVI wrote an encyclical, a papal encyclical, and let me just, I think I've got this correct here. It was titled Caritas in Caritas in Veritate. Of course, that's Latin. But within this encyclical, Pope Benedict XVI advocated this gradual, balanced transfer of wealth by nations and by people to a world authority and to regional authorities. That struck me as rather odd, stating that it was a moral imperative that the redistribution of wealth be performed. And that's Pope Benedict XVI advocating these Marxist principles. And I just thought, you know what, Joe, I just thought that was important for people to know, because even at the highest levels of the Vatican, of the papacy, just like the highest levels of our government, we've got this common agenda pushing toward this one world order, as Pope Benedict XVI is talking about. And by the way, Pope Benedict XVI is picking his own conclave of cardinals. Okay. So what we're going to get is this continuity of agenda, just like we've had here in the States with the papacy.
Yeah, we've seen this continuity of agenda carry on for almost 60 to 100 years, since the inception of the Federal Reserve, and before that. They've just become more blatant and in the open about it, not caring who sees and hears. They say, we're going to create a New World Order, and if you say the word New World Order, well, you are an extremist. But to end on your point about the politics of the left and the right, I'm going to play a quick 2-minute audio from Mark Levin, because he had some very choice words for tonight's State of the Union address. Here it is.
You should view these politicians with the deepest contempt you can possibly imagine. What they are doing to this country, what they are doing to our finances. There is not a criminal in any federal prison, state prison, city or county jail with respect to financial crimes of any sort, who collectively, if we look at them in the aggregate, could have done the kind of damage that Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, and yes, willing, timid, gutless Republicans have done to this country, to your future, to your children and your grandchildren. What they are doing is with malice and with forethought, because you don't have to look far to see all the warning signals and to hear all the voices of concern. And they continue on and on and on. What the hell does the Democrat Party stand for today? The destruction of America? And what the hell does the Republican Party stand for today? To sit there with their thumbs in their mouths while it's going on? Any politician with an ounce of common sense should be getting on any soapbox imaginable and screaming from the top of their destroying America. Instead, the Republicans cower. Their consultants and their pollsters saying, be quiet, be quiet. Meanwhile, Obama's not a wildly popular president. He didn't win by anything close to a landslide. His poll numbers are not magnificent. And as I've said now for week after week after week, yes, he won a majority of the vote, but he has not won a majority of the hearts and the minds of the American people. Other hosts have been out there saying they has, or they're confounded by the whole damn thing. I am not. More when we return.
You know what, Joe? That fits nicely with what I said before about the continuity of agenda inside our government, as well as the papacy, and I'm sure throughout any type of government entity. And I think Mark Levin, I could not add another word, another paragraph, sentence, or even an exclamation point to that. I think it was very good. I really do.
It was good. I'm not going to start. One thing I wanted to mention to you, somebody shared a video Pastor Paul made today about the Pope and the lightning. And in his book, RFID, The Mark of the Beast, he wrote in there, and this was a fictional book he wrote about real-world events and how they were going to take place, where he predicted Morsi would be president of Egypt before that happened. He wrote in his book that the Pope would resign. I thought that was very interesting. So we're going to have to get in contact.
Check that out, yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to mention that to you before I forgot. He said that's the 8th time that what he wrote in his book as fiction has now come to pass, which I find very interesting. Also, something I found very interesting today, I'll post a link into the chat, the Department of Homeland Security source, okay? This is not the source that
I have. No, it's
not
my source.
This is not Rosebud. So this article was released on the 6th of February. It says DHS source tells why military training why they're training in U.S. cities. The news article was sent to me earlier this week. It appeared in the Bayfort Gazette. The article stated that later this week, about 150 Marines and Navy personnel will hold a realistic urban training drill in Jasper County, South Carolina. This was one of many joint military local law enforcement exercises that had come to my attention in less than a month. Held in cities across the U.S., they were becoming more common and more intense. But why? Why train in populated towns and cities where accidents could produce unnecessary casualties? It goes on to say the Gazette further reported that the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit would train in Ridgeland town limits, and that's something we went over before. But interestingly enough, in this Department of Homeland Security, the source, this says in the article, I spoke with a high-ranking military source in DHS, preferring to remain unnamed for obvious reasons. He told me DHS and the DOD, Department of Defense, are conducting desensitizing exercises all across the U.S. He paused and added, we're being prepared for massive civil unrest in major U.S. cities, and the Department of Defense will be expected to help when they're requested. I asked if there was a timeline for expecting the civil unrest in our cities, and what should we expect it to begin with. I was told that there were many reasons, but that the continued devaluation of the currency, the predicted history setting prices for gasoline this summer, and the continued gun control debate is forming a perfect storm of civil discontent. And they ask, when will this start? And they say this summer. From a high-ranking source deep within DHS who has strong ties to the Department of Defense, we are being told that a joint Department of Defense local law enforcement exercises are to desensitize the population to military occupation. When asked if there was any concern about violating posse comitatus, he stated no concern at all. That's been a non-issue for a long time. Now, this is not the same source, as we said, and if this is accurate, if this person is, this writer's on the up and up and does have this source, did talk to this person, it goes to not only back up what your guy's telling you, but it adds something to it, which is the elements of the Department of Defense getting involved, and also the reason for the drills and their views on posse comitatus. But I thought that was interesting and something that we should talk about. Now, if it's made up, I guess you're gonna. This is a site I've never worked with or heard from before, read anything from before. The Alley Giant. It's the Progressive Socio-Political Network, is what they say right on their page. But anyway, the point is possibly a second person inside the government with a high level of security clearance coming out and saying we're preparing for a massive civil war based on a few things, but first stated was the devaluation of the dollar.
Gee, so let me get this straight, Joe. So there's a second DHS source, high-level DHS source, saying that basically the same thing that I've said. And this information has been welcomed in locations I haven't been welcomed in, or I should say this, the information that I've provided has not been, or the information that this source provided has been well received as opposed to mine, which is fine.
I don't know about well received aside from yours. Yours was well received, but let me read. I found this on a internet forum.
Okay.
And this is what the person wrote. What I thought was interesting is that this is a different writer than the other individual with the source Rosebud. That author is not allowed to be mentioned here. But you can see a reference here, and it goes to your Cyber Warrior article. And it goes on to say, I would assume that this is a different DHS insider mentioning this thing.
Yeah, and I think it is because, yeah.
And this isn't the site that blocks this post or any post that comes from you. This is a site that just blocks your name from being involved, or my name. But it speaks to, as I said, it's a confirmation, if true. Now, to determine whether it's true or not, obviously you're never going to hear this person come out and say, yeah, it was me that said that. So you're going to need to take this in prayer if it's something that you feel is worth that, or if you need this information, and ask the Lord to reveal it to you. Because what we've encountered with the release of the information from Rosebud and not citing him by name with a picture of him and his credentials is, in some people's views, equal to making it up, pretty much.
Hearing voices in my head.
Right. So, that should be applied to your source's information as well as this source's information. But when you see not only reports of people speaking out inside the government, take all that away and just look at their actions. They have been
government actions.
Right.
Okay.
Multiple military agency urban training, warfare training drills all across the country. They have troops on the streets in different areas, and this last winter storm we just saw hit Massachusetts and as well as other states. Massachusetts deployed 6,000 National Guards through executive order, enforcing a curfew where no cars were allowed on the road, or you would face a fine. And I said, this is training for martial law. You don't shut down a whole state because of snow.
Conditioning it.
Yeah. And we see the bullets they're acquiring. We see the checkpoint, pillbox, highway things that they're acquiring. We see the lexicons where they're labeling the people they perceive to be threats. We see this increase on cybersecurity, aside from what your source said,
right,
coming from the White House, that they're going to use executive action. We see the all-encompassing surveillance state coming into full fruition with the drones, light bulbs, your dishwasher, the TV, computers, phones, warrantless wiretaps, all of it. The police state is here. We have new legislation that I read to you guys yesterday, which is the old H.R. 645, now H.R. 390, if I'm correct. This is the National Emergency Centers Establishment Act, where they want to build national emergency centers on military installations in case of a national emergency or the relocation of citizens or displaced people due to a disaster, a terrorist attack, to provide medical, housing, or humanitarian assistance to individuals, providing centralized locations for the purposes of training and ensuring the coordination of federal, state, and local first responders. And it goes on from there. Now they're going to designate these military installations as national emergency centers.
right,
And they're starting off with 6 of them. 6 places where they're going to take an old military installation and turn it into a FEMA camp. And you want a few things here when they do this. 2 out of these 3 criteria must be met when choosing the location. 1, its location is in close proximity to a transportation corridor. 2, it is located in a state with a high level or threat disaster-related activities.
okay,
3, is located near a major metropolitan center. So 2 out of those 3 criteria need to be met. And I think it's interesting, something I didn't hit on last night, that these centers are going to be, we have the 10 regions of FEMA. You're familiar with that. I hope the audience is too. It's no longer 60 states. We are broken down into 10 different regions.
Wait. 50 states.
What did I say?
60.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, 50.
That's all right.
Anyway.
At least you didn't say 57.
So we have FEMA regions 1 through 10. Now, they want 1 of these buildings in regions 1, 2, and 3. 1 for all 3. 1 for region 4. 1 for region 5 and 7. 1 for region 6, and 1 for region 8 and 10, and then 1 for region 9.
Okay, I saw that.
And I know me saying it's hard to understand.
No,
If you look at the FEMA maps, they break it down, the country down into sections. It's the 10-section map. We are in FEMA region 3. It's Pennsylvania, New York, and I think some states south of that. But regardless, why are they breaking it down into the 10 FEMA regions where they're locating these? That is something that bothered me.
Now, folks, I don't know whether you heard this or not. And Joe, I don't know if you've heard this. If you have, maybe you can expand on it. Was there not discussion in the event of a dollar collapse of instead of individual states separating the country into trade zones?
Yeah.
Now, my question is, do these FEMA regions, are they consistent with the trade zones in terms of area, geography, and that type of thing? Or are they the same? Are they cut out the same way? Do we know?
That is something I don't know, but judging, looking at where they want the requirements for where they want these places, they want it in close proximity to a major transportation corridor, or near a major metropolitan center,
All right.
or in a state with a high level or threat of disaster-related activities. Now, those are some very broad definitions. I mean, what's a transportation corridor? What's a major metropolitan center? what's a state with a high level or a high level threat of a disaster or disaster-related activity? So I guess it could be wherever they decide.
All right.
The criteria is so vague, they could pretty much, find a definition of what they are saying anywhere in the nation. They build one of these.
All right.
If that came across clearly.
No, it did. I mean, I understood that. Hopefully the listeners will as well. Now, to the listeners, I'm going to throw out a question. The people in the chat room, you can hazard a guess on this. This is quiz time on the Hagmann and Hagmann report. I'm going to give you a number, and I'm going to ask you to type in the chat room, those of you who have joined or who are active there, to tell me what this number represents. The winner will get my applause. Now, by the way, we're working on getting some Hagmann and Hagmann gear.
We already have.
Well, I know, but
we got
some short audience.
Some coffee mugs for us, yeah.
Right, and actually we're kind of beta testing it. A couple of things, like anything that we do buy, we want to buy locally. We want to be able to, or we want to make sure that that it's made in America. It's a good quality, and then we want to ship it ourselves and pack it ourselves, so we're sure of the quality and that everything is top notch, as opposed to ordering it, let's say, from Cafe Press or somewhere else. It's just a kind of a thing I've got about that. But I'm going to give you a number, and the people in the chat room, go ahead and hazard a guess as to what this number represents. I can't, like I said, we really can't offer any prizes, but it'll be fun to see what the answers are. 65,376,373. Once again,
your volume is pretty low. Move your mic closer.
All right. How about this? Better?
A little bit.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Was I leaning on the? Let me see here. How about now?
Yeah, that's better. At least in my head.
I was actually leaning on the button. 65,376,373. What does that number represent?
And Tim in chat is correct, and there might be people who answered that before him. The number of guns bought since Obama has taken office.
Very good. I you know what? Since February of 2009, I cannot believe that you folks got that. Wow.
Well, it's actually been reported on a lot of mainstream news sites today and alternative sites.
Oh, really?
Yes. Actually, it was a headline on Drudge today. Along with this piece of important...
And here I thought I was being really sneaky.
Economic news. Food stamp rolls in America now surpass the population of Spain. Since taking office in 2009, food stamp rolls under Obama have risen to more than 47 million people in America, exceeding the population of Spain. Now is the time to act boldly and wisely, to not only revive this economy, but to build a new foundation for lasting prosperity, said Obama during his first joint session addressed to Congress February 24, 2009. Since then, the number of participants enrolled in food stamps, known as the Supplemental Assistance Nutrition Program, has risen substantially. When Obama entered office in January 2009, there were 31.9 million Americans receiving food stamps. As of November 2012, the most recent data available, there were 47.7 million Americans enrolled, an increase of basically 50%. According to the 2011 census, Spain had a population of 46.8 million. So, during Obama's term, there have been an average of 11,269 people being added to the food stamp program a day. A day. Almost 12,000 people a day.
That is an incredible number.
Yeah. And I want to, before the break, we have a few minutes, I got a few quick clips I want to play just to show you the state of confusion we are really in. The first, and tell me I didn't upload this one, the most important one, Pelosi, and I don't see it in here, I'll add it. I can do it during the break here. But Pelosi said this yesterday in an interview, but we don't have a spending problem. Not at all. The deficit's not a problem. We do not have a spending problem, she said. And now I want to play a clip from Jay Carney, what he said today.
All right.
Here it is.
Peter. Jay, question about House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi on one of the Sunday broadcasts, speaking specifically about the risk of cuts, referring to the sequester on the future of the United States. She was talking about education and scientific research. She said, quote, "It is almost a false wrong to say we have a spending problem." Does the president think we have a spending problem?
You know, I feel like this is a little bit of deja vu here. Of course the president believes that we have a spending problem that is specifically driven by, and I think every economist worth this, you know, whose insights into this area are worth the paper on which his or her PhD is printed, would tell you that the principal driver when it comes to spending of our deficits and debt is healthcare spending. And that's just a fact. What is also a fact is that we have reduced non-defense discretionary spending to its lowest level as a percentage of our economy since Dwight Eisenhower was president. And I think only a few of you here were covering Eisenhower. So that is a long time. And that doesn't mean that we can't... So maybe... Tom? No? Okay. No, there are people who have great... have spent a long time covering and know this stuff back and forward, and they know this fact that non-defense discretionary spending has not been this low for generations. That doesn't mean that there aren't programs that should be eliminated, and this president has been aggressive in finding them and taking action, or that programs cannot be reformed in a way that save money. It doesn't mean that we can't reform government in a way that saves money. In fact, the president has put forward to Congress exactly that in a proposal that would consolidate agencies and save taxpayers money. But the fact of the matter is we need to reduce our health care costs. Funnily enough, recognizing that fact, the president took action to do just that through the Affordable Care Act, which has been scored by the CBO to significantly reduce our health care costs going forward. We need to do more. The president's put forward entitlement reforms that would further reduce our health care costs. What he doesn't believe is that we need to simply shift our health care costs onto seniors. Basically say, we've got a problem that is now yours, Mr. 75-year-old American, or Mrs. 75-year-old American. He believes that we ought to reduce these costs and not shift them onto seniors.
And there you go. That was Jay Carney. But before we revisit what Jay Carney said, this from January 7th of this year, Obama, we don't have a spending problem. John Boehner said in a Wall Street Journal interview that he was stunned more than anything else during his prolonged closed-door budget negotiations with Obama, as the revelation at one point several weeks ago, Mr. Boehner says, the president said to me, we don't have a spending problem. Now, looking at what Jay Carney said today is that, of course, the president believes we have a spending problem. But if you heard what else he said in there, in the video I didn't have up was Nancy Pelosi on Sunday stated that there is no spending problem. But Carney went on to say that not only is Obama aware of the spending problem, but they have the lowest level, discretionary spending is at its lowest level as a percentage of our economy since Dwight Eisenhower was president. I mean, the lies and manipulation, and I'm sure people probably believe that. I mean, the average person sitting there listening to the news, and as Harry Reid said last week, we're in a recovery. You remember? Well, now we have the coming pension crisis. States face a $3 trillion funding gap. And this that says, many Americans look at the crisis in Greece and shake their heads wondering how is it possible for an entire country to derail the future of its younger generation. One big problem in Greece was massive government liabilities, funding very generous pensions. Yet this game, at an enormous cost, The U.S. is facing a different crisis, but the markets have already responded over the last few decades. And it goes on from here. The shift away from pensions. While the stock market inches closer to a previous peak, the shift with pensions has been rather dramatic. Well, and we're going to get into those figures and some other important news on the other side and start taking your calls. Some of the other things we're going to hit on tonight are the North Korea test launch or nuclear launch that they did.
Should we be worried?
Yeah. More on the donor situation and also on the currency wars and economic situation, as well as taking your phone calls and some special announcements for this week, who's coming on our show and where we'll be on other people's shows right after these short messages. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Tuesday, February 12, 2013, and the State of the Union address is kicking off political theater for their ignorant masses. We'll be right back.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's canadafreepress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at canadafreepress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Hold on to your seats. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Tuesday, February 12th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Before getting back into news, we have some announcements that we would like to make for our show in the next coming days and weeks. Tomorrow night, we will be a guest on Lori's Talk News Radio. It's right after our show, from 11 to 12. That's Lori's Talk News Radio. I will post a link in the chat room for those who need it. It is on Blog Talk Radio also, if you search.
And that's 11 to 12 Eastern, 11 to midnight Eastern time.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Directly after our show.
All right.
And also, Thursday, we are going to have Tom Horn and Steve on, as they are going to be talking about the Pope, what his resignation means, Petrus Romanus, the book that Tom Horn and Chris Putnam wrote together, and also their new one, Exo Vatican. Also, special Sunday night show 3 hours with Nathan Liao. And in his...
What's that going to be about, Joe?
A lot of interesting things. He is currently drafting an article that he is writing that expands on what he's talking about about the portals being opened. And this is what he emailed to me, some of the topics he wants to include. He says, more open portals are coming. There's a new chapter of a spiritual attack that is approaching. While the assault is in motion, it will have involvement of things, creatures, beings who have made their final calling to be enemies of Yahweh and humanity. They want to destroy America by taking it down the road of wickedness, destruction, and tyranny. And he has some information about President's Day, which is the day following our broadcast with him Sunday.
So it almost sounds like this is going to be like an extension of Thursday. Okay.
And he has a website, The Watchman's Cry, and he has, as I said, he is drafting an article, and it's going to be perfect timing, according to him, for what information he is putting out to come on and do the show Sunday. And the show Sunday is from 8 to 11 Eastern Time, not a 9 to midnight deal. And then also, Thursday, February 21st, we're going to have Dr. Judy Wood on.
And Pete Santelli as well, I believe.
Okay.
They're going to come on as a team. Dr. Judy Wood has information about 9/11. She is an engineer. She's got a doctorate in engineering. She wrote an 860-page book about the physics of 9/11, and quite an interesting book that has various theories that she can actually back up by. Well, it appears that she's backed it up by the documentation. Now, I don't have the book yet. I did sit through the 4 video segments.
Yeah. And I have some information on this. I haven't not read the book, and I've only seen some of her findings or her claims, and it is about 9/11 and some type of nuclear.
Let me just directed energy, maybe
yes.
Not nuclear, but directed energy type of weaponry that has been verified. Yeah,
interestingly enough, and sadly, our special friend, 9/11 first responder Phil, talked to a doctor, and he was in the hospital last week for headaches.
All right.
He's out, and I spoke with him briefly yesterday, I think. But he talked about a doctor he went to see who said that some of the either the aggravation from the conditions he had or the new illnesses he got had to do with something nuclear, which I don't want to put words in his mouth or take it any further than that, but he did say that, and we'll get a clarification, and I'll have him explain it better to me, or I'll write it down, or he can call in and state exactly what it is the doctor told him. But there was some kind of Dr. Judy Wood says there was some kind of direct energy weapon used to bring down the towers. Now, we know, or at least from what we've seen, most people understand those buildings were built to withstand airplane hits. Those buildings were demolished, in my opinion. They were brought down. There was multiple videos of explosions going off in the basement. There is police scanner audio of a van being detonated in the basement of one of the towers. If you look at the footage of the rubble, and you look at what steel looks like after being going through a controlled demolition, 90-degree angles, there was just too much heat. And what you said, you guys talked about on either Rick Wild's show or on another show, Where did all the toilets go? I mean, everything was pulverized.
Yeah, that was
passports.
I'll tell you what, that was an interesting conversation with Rick Wiles, and Dr. Wood has some very interesting information. Let me back up from what I said before, because I feel like there's voices on my head here as I'm talking via this mic, so we're going to have to make other arrangements. But the bottom line,
back on the studio equipment,
yeah, perhaps, but the bottom line here is she has done a lot of research about weapons that could have accomplished the task that she did. Are we off? Or did I just go deaf or what? No, we're okay? We're up, okay. Specific patents, specific weaponry that could have been used, and I stress could have been used. Now, why is all this important? It's quite a few, 12 years after the fact. Well, we need, this is such a significant moment in history. Of course, to the core listeners, to the regular listeners, we don't have to explain why it's important. But I think that if the truth does come out about this, I truly believe that we could advance. I mean, if exposure to this agenda is so important, exposure to the tactics is so important.
So, and I agree, 9/11 is, if shown for what it really was, will be, if that evidence were to come to light to the American public, which it won't, except for those who are looking, will help them better understand the different events that have been used to engineer our society in the direction it has gone, to create the fear, the terror, the propaganda, the surveillance, all-encompassing surveillance system that we now find ourselves living in, this tyranny. And on that point, I just wanted to add this because it is fitting. When people think about and are worried about the Department of Homeland Security or the government spying on what they do, listening into the phone calls, possibly watching them from their computer cameras, facial recognition software, biometric data. What about spiritual surveillance? I mean, that's every second of your life. God has you under surveillance. He's watching you. He knows what you do, what we do, what's going on. And just to, I won't expand on it anymore. There's no need to. You guys understand. We have the Lord watching us at all times. And it's not in a creepy way. It is in a way so he understands our actions and knows what we're doing, when we're doing it, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, what we're thinking, our behaviors, and how they're changing at all times in our thoughts. And I think that means, I would say for me, it means to be much more aware, constantly trying to improve. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. That was just the quick thought I wrote down after the show last night and did not have a chance to continue to expand on it. But here is a clip about North Korea that I wanted to play. They tested a nuclear device, had a nuclear test yesterday, and they're threatening the USA again.
And the bottom line question here, though, is should we be worried?
Right, and we'll hit that on the other side. This is 2 minutes.
Strongly condemning now Pyongyang for carrying out a controlled explosion of a nuclear device. This after North Korea confirmed its third underground nuclear test aimed against what it called, quote, outrageous U.S. hostility. Details now from RT's Anissa Nawe.
The reclusive state has announced that it successfully detonated a miniaturized nuclear device at an underground test site, defying orders from the UN Security Council. Condemnation is expected across the board, especially from the West. An emergency meeting at the UN Security Council has been called. Ban Ki-moon and South Korea have already been vocal about their very serious concerns. Now, the main issue is that this puts North Korea one step closer to its goal of building a nuclear warhead small enough to mount on a long-range missile capable of reaching the United States. It's still early in Washington, but this is seen as a direct threat from a direct message, I should say, from new leader Kim Jong-un to President Obama just hours before he gives his annual State of the Union. Surely President Obama will react somehow, most likely by threatening more sanctions and further isolation. The big questions are, is that enough to, one, deter North Korea from its nuclear ambitions, and two, is that the right method, if there is a real danger of nuclear activity?
Anisa Naue reporting right there. In the meantime, Asia specialist Tim Beale, he thinks that foreign sanctions will fail to rein in North Korea's nuclear ambitions, as Pyongyang can only be appeased through the issue of negotiations.
I don't know if anyone in the American top elite really thinks they will have an effect. They say they claim they think they will, but it's really uncertain. No country really changes policy under sanctions if the alternative, if what is being required of them is worse than the sanctions, and that is the case with North Korea. So North Korea, in a sense, could surrender could acquiesce to American demands, but that, in fact, in their eyes, would be worse than what Americans can do to them with sanctions. So they will persevere. I think they will persevere until the Americans come to the negotiating table. Whether that will happen, of course, is another matter.
There you go. North Korea's nuclear test. And I don't know how to say this name. What is that? Parangoya?
I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but
okay, defying the United Nations, North Korea confirms its third nuclear test, which also registered as a 4.9 earthquake yesterday. At the UN, the desire to impose even harsher sanctions on North Korea to try to curb its development of nuclear arms and ballistic missiles has long stalled in the face of Chinese opposition. The standard chain of events playing out here and again on Tuesday after North Korea said it had carried out its third nuclear test. Security Council diplomats and the experts who track sanctions enforcement are quick to tick off the contents of a deeper toolbox that could be used to try to corral Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. And they include banning specific high-tech items used in the nuclear program, and it goes on. But the real question, theater or threat?
Well, okay, let me address part of this. On Saturday, North Korea's official website, which distributes news propaganda from the state media, they uploaded a video which was shot as a dream sequence with a young man seeing himself on board a North Korean space shuttle launched into orbit by the same type of rocket that was tested in December. Well, and Joe, did you hear about this? Where the video footage actually showed an American city, believed to be New York City, somewhere in the United States, black clouds of smoke billowing out across the screen.
Many people sent that to me, and I did watch it. What was shown in the video was multiple bombs and explosions going off inside of a U.S. city.
All right. Well, now, we do know, by the way, where that test was performed. There are two tunnels. That was an underground test, which registered that earthquake. There were two tunnels there. Some are saying to expect yet another test, perhaps, in the other tunnel. We don't know. It could have been just kind of a fake out for the satellites or for whatever surveillance they were under, but we have to keep that in mind. Really the clock is ticking. The nuclear clock is ticking. I think we have to at least look at this. You've got a lot of third world countries, thanks to the AQ-Con nuclear black market of nuclear materials, all engaged in potential nuclear warfare.
Yeah, we have threats from China. We have threats from the big one, Iran. We have North Korea, which, North Korea, from what I've seen in the last 6 months, they try to launch a satellite and it failed right away. They had other.
You're talking about. Wait a second. You're talking about North Korea or are you talking about Iran?
North Korea. Then they try to launch a test that failed.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Now, the one thing that we should be very well aware of is the Iranian test. When they said, when the state-run media here said the test failed, they really didn't fail. These missiles did exactly what they were designed to do, and that is to launch, perhaps, a nuclear weapon over the United States for detonation in order to cause a complete EMP type of event. That's what's being kept from the American people. And I think it's that. If there's anything that scares me the most, it's not a nuclear explosion by North Korea. It's an EMP type event, even offshore, that would cause like a cascading type of failure all across the United States. That is, I think, that's what we have to be concerned about.
Right. But one thing I will say, as far as this theater versus threat, is we have been hearing talk of the Iranians, attacking the major nuclear attack for the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've heard these North Korea murmurings that they can attack the U.S. with nuclear weapons. And I say, I'm putting up the flag. There's no way. We have the defense capabilities in North America through treaties with Canada and Mexico. The missile defense systems, the NORAD, the air capabilities we have. What's the other one? There's another agency. There's a bunch of agencies. We know if a missile is launched, real time, we would be able to, the government, has the technology to pretty much live, real-time monitor where it's launched from, where it's going,
right?
How long it will take. They can pin everything down. They can stop it if they want to, intercept it, whatever methods they choose to use. They have the capabilities to do that. They did also on 9/11. Now that the real question is, if there is an attack or missile launched at us, would they stop it? That might be the real threat. But in this case of North Korea, I'm not sure they even have the capabilities to get that over here. But yes, the threat of an EMP
is probably that's
detonate 2 EMPs well above the United States. Basically, one on the eastern coast, one on the western coast, or around
Kansas.
It would kill the power to all the USA pretty much. Kill communications systems. Now, what would that do? It would leave everybody in a state of uncertainty to the point where they could use propaganda for different regions, stating, "Oh, the West Coast has been wiped out," when they're fine. They could say everything in the west of the Mississippi is dead, or everything east of the Mississippi is dead. They could use regionally supportive propaganda messages and really do a number on the country and the people of the country. And when we talk about gun confiscations, the Army and urban warfare drills and resettlement operations, what better way to do that than to be able to have Americans not communicate with each other? And we wouldn't know. If we haven't had power for 4 days, we haven't heard from our, aunts, in our case, my aunt in San Diego, or people from another state, or anybody that you can normally talk to with all this new technology. When that communication is gone, how do you really know unless you see it for yourself? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can pretty much tell you anything to be able to control your reaction, or to tell you something to make you act or behave or do something in a certain way.
Interesting line of thought there. Interesting. That is interesting. I don't know how well that would work. I suppose. I don't know, but I do know this: an EMP would take out, if done effectively, could take out all the communications, all the power, and we would not be able to get back up for. What did they say at that conference? A couple of years? 4 years? Okay.
Yeah.
So think about this. We don't have. See, our infrastructure is not hardened. Our communication system is not hardened. So we will be left in the dark until equipment can be made to replace the equipment that is destroyed by an EMP. And we're talking about them making the equipment in China.
Yeah.
Now think about that.
Yeah. Definitely concerning either way you want to look at it, as the threats being perceived as real or not being real at all doesn't really make a difference when we know the capabilities of our government and what they can do with information, controlling pretty much everything. It's just a matter of how will it come about, what will they do, what mechanisms will they use to bring about this change. And if you read their own documents, if you read their own publications, they, as I read the bill for the new National Emergency Centers Establishment Act, they also have the internment and resettlement operations PDF that talks about what they will do, how they will put you into a camp. Even if you're a displaced citizen or a civilian internee, under one of the processing parts, it talks about how they will silence you from being able to sing or pray by putting a cloth in your mouth and fastening it around the back of your neck. It talks about how they will teach religion in these establishments, where only the nationally accepted teachings of your religion, or what the government considers the government's interpretation of your religion and its beliefs, will be the only thing that will be allowed to be taught. And it says in here, people who aren't moderate or do not believe in moderate interpretations of their religion will not be a part of this because they will view it as something bad. But it all speaks to one thing. Integrating the religions, because they're going to have, in implementing their one world religion, one world economic system, they're going to have to find a way to integrate the three major religions, that being Judaism, Christianity, and
Islam.
Islam, yeah. They're going to have to find a way, or create an event, or create another social manipulation maneuver that will be acceptable, the people will be accepting or not care about the sovereignty of the religion. They're going to say, well, this threat is so bad, the earth has become, because of World War III and economic cause, so bad, we just need to be back in order. You need stability. So whatever you're going to do, do it, because we can't take this civil war any longer.
And this is what I found, too, from recent documentation. The goal is to infiltrate the churches, replace the established religion with something called social religion. They are going to discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity. And folks, listen to those words, because when you hear those words being spoken at a church or at somewhere else, it's very important. Intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. Now, as far as the mainline denominational churches are concerned, this goal has been virtually accomplished already. And it has been for many years, because we're seeing a trend. The trend was accompanied by an interesting phenomenon and controversy. Some years ago, the large major denominations began to move away from the established biblical teachings to the so-called social gospel. For centuries in America, even before America was settled, Christianity was generally taught as the unique and true religion in Europe. True Christianity was based on a person being saved by grace, or a person who trusted that Christ had done all the work on the cross, and the individual only had to accept that fact, whereas all the other religions required the person to do something, and that's something people have to understand, the difference. Now, working your way to heaven, doing your best, hoping that the good outweighs the bad, was the consistent theme of all the other religions. And so just understand the push for this social religion that's infiltrating the churches.
Right.
We need to understand that that's the that's the goal.
Never waver from Jesus Christ.
Right.
And we will be put in a position, as the Bible states, where there will come a time where we will be persecuted, we will be afflicted, we will be delivered up for his name's sake, for not denying the Lord's name. And let me read to you what this internment and resettlement documentation talks about religious discussion groups in the facilities.
Okay.
The goal for religious groups is to provide religious support to detainees and moderate extremists within the facility. This is above and beyond the standard clerical support that is required and provided in the course of normal detention operations. The clerical leaders who are chosen to participate must be carefully vetted and are typically selected from a moderate elements of their respective religion. It goes on to say, extremists participating in religious discussion groups may be tempered by the more moderate philosophy and reinforced by socialization with other more moderate detainees. It is also possible that religious extremists may reject a moderate interpretation of their religion and detract from efforts to present a moderate approach. Many extremists will not participate, fearing that the facility-sanctioned advocate is a cooperative spiritual leader working with the government. The only way that moderate leaders retain credibility is by operating on their own, and forced sessions or religious re-education, they say, only will discredit those. But it goes on to say the religious discussion groups offered to detainees as a program will educate them only on specific aspects of their religion. It also says that the program educates detainees on the nationally accepted teachings of their religion as viewed by the host nation, meaning if we were put into camps here in America, it would be the nationally accepted version of what they say it would be Christianity. And it goes on to say during the program, detainees are brought together with religious leaders and scholars to focus on major teaching points of dogma. The program may be valuable in curbing extreme fanaticism.
Right.
And hinder a better, more comprehensive worldview.
I just want to say this because the document that you're reading from takes its basis from a 1962 decision, Engel versus Vitale. That decision struck down a New York state law that required public schools to begin the school day with either the Bible, a Bible reading, or some type of prayer. And that now, in the 41 years since, or no, more than that, 50 years since that ruling came down. The reinterpreting of our Constitution in this area has been, and it continues to be conducted daily, if not weekly, if not monthly, if not yearly. I mean, many people are not aware of the historical fact that for several hundred years, almost all schools and colleges in America were Christian. One example I found was just unbelievable. Did you know that back in 1962, where is it? Harvard, I believe. Let me look at my notes here. Harvard had this sign that was very pro-Christian, and of course, in 1962 they took that sign down. But what you're reading from is the plan to be used, which will eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in schools, in any public arena, in re-education camps, in any type of what would you call them, refugee centers, because it violates the principle of church and state. Now, this is something we've been hearing for a long time, and it's just a fallacious, the argument is not right. But this has been going strong for the last 50 years. So, you're right.
Yeah, and for those who want to, I know I've referenced this many times, but new listeners, it's called Internment, the U.S. Army Internment and Resettlement Operations. If you search that, it's a 326-page PDF, and it lays out everything in terms of how they plan to take you, how they are going to segregate you, how they are going to label you. And it's not just for people who are considered terrorists. They have made very clear distinctions between civilian internees that have been displaced by anything from disasters to getting in the way of military operations to, what did I say, civilian internees. You will have displaced citizens, displaced aliens, which are non-national to the country, and then you'll have moderate extremists and violent, radical extremists. So there are clear distinctions and two different types of civilian classifications where it says, the people might not be criminals, they might not have a criminal record, but somehow find themselves being detained in one of these internment and resettlement operations.
And we have to look at that as being part of the larger agenda, which is to make this one world religion, as we talked about, this religion where everyone worships the same God, by taking Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and melding them into this social religion, going back right back to the historical concepts I talked about with the United Nations.
Yeah, and think about this, what Tom Horn talks about, and I know this is, we can talk about these theories all day, but there might come a time when this needs to, people might need to know this. In the Bible, it speaks about deceptions, especially in the latter times coming, great deceptions, so deceitful that if possible, the very elect will be deceived. God's chosen people, the people who are so taken away from this world and so close to the Lord that it's possible that they could be deceived.
But we've got their game plan here. We've got their playbook here.
But that's not going to matter whenever these events happen, whatever it is, whether it is a World War III scenario to where everybody says, enough fighting. Well, give us your new system because the old one didn't work, or a manufactured threat and manufactured omnipresent threat, like an alien invasion. And no, there will not be an alien invasion in the way people think or would hear that term and what they would think. If there is an alien invasion, it is the workings of the New World Order manipulating technology to the point where we don't know or understand the new technology they have. But we know that there is only two forces in the spiritual realm, the divine and the evil.
Right.
So there is, obviously the Bible doesn't talk about aliens. So if you see these things or any kind of threat or any kind of extra human threat, and they're saying this is the reason we must all go under this one world religious system, this is a deception. And this will be much harder to pull off than a one world economic system. People would easily go into a one world economic system if the world economy crashed today, we'll say. People are starving. 1 month of no food in the stores, running water, electricity. People will beg for order to be restored with whatever system. The religious aspect is going to be harder. That's why the Christians will have to be persecuted. They're not going to change their beliefs. Not the real Christians. And there will be a point in time in our lives, in our lifespan, I believe, where we will be asked the question, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And it will cost you your life if you answer wrong or right.
I believe you 100%. Look at what has happened over the years. I just want to make a couple of notations here, because there was Dr. Francis Schaeffer wrote a book, How Should We Then Live, was the title of the book. This is 40 years ago. And at that time, he stated that we are living in a post-Christian America. Now, I suppose it's no doubt at this point that we no longer live in a purely Christian nation. However, there are many revisionists who try to argue that our country's founding was not based upon biblical and Christian principles, and that's permeating the culture today. And I think that that's going to be used. Will not that be used as part of the mind numbing of the Christians today? That's that's how I read it. But I think history is being revised.
Being more than revised, it is history is no longer history. What the old saying, history is written by those who are the winners or those who survive. History and the teachings of history have been manipulated. I mean, look at the schools, our U.S. school systems. At one point, the most productive and most prosperous nation, most literate nation on the planet, the curriculum has been changed, and about 25 years later, we have probably the most ignorant civilization on the earth. And I'm not trying to be rude. When you have people, and it was explained, somebody said it in what was it? 1/4 of all high school kids, if not more, don't graduate. 44% of people who get 4-year business, the doctor said it at the speech he gave at the National Prayer Breakfast. 44% of people who go start a 4-year college degree, start out on a 4-year college degree, don't get the degree within 4 years, and some of them not at all. We have people who, and it's set up, and I was thinking about this, I know this is off topic. We're going to go to call soon, 661-244-9839. But why are all these, the public housing assistance programs, the government helping people who are poor, who don't have the ability to get homes, but they have families, why do they put them always in these terrible inner city areas? Why don't they put them in more rural, urban, rural areas with better schools, with better opportunity than sticking them in a ghetto? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why are all the programs where they house people, and a lot of times where they feed people, and even rehabilitation centers, and they're always seem to be in the cities, in the public housing, in the worst parts of the cities, instead of in spreading them around to more diverse areas, to where you could give people an opportunity to go to different school districts. I mean, we have schools here in this city, in Erie, where some of them, blocks away from each other. One school is, 20 times better, the education rate or the graduation rate. Right. But they stick these people in places where it is the lowest.
But that's where Agenda 21 comes in. Does it not? Because
it makes sense from the evil.
From the evil point, yeah, absolutely. But are not these laws or these not laws, but these programs designed by Agenda 21, molded through the objectives of Agenda 21, the United Nations? It goes right back to the United Nations. It goes back to the one world governance. It goes back to this theory of I don't want to call it a moral theory, but this intellectual, I guess it would be a moral theory too, that the urban areas are the cultural centers and therefore the moral centers, and they can control the people much easier. And this is why there's this big push for urban areas against versus suburban areas. So where else would you put them? Assuming the Superdome is full.
No, I know. I know it was off topic, but it was something that I was thinking about earlier. We're always seeing these poor communities, and I have a friend who has a child with a woman, and she's getting this. They call it Section 8 here. I think it might be universal, but I mean it's in the worst part of town. And right. I'm just thinking, if you're going to do something to help the people, you're going to give them housing. Why not? I'm not saying build them mansions. Put the same buildings in a different part of the city. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, way off topic.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to ask you about something, and folks, because I thought I was being smart with that number, and I guess everyone heard about that number. But let me ask you this: have you heard about this? And we didn't talk about this before the show, where the various cities now. The city council in Houston, for example, passed an ordinance requiring people who sell metals to be fingerprinted and photographed. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
And the bullets, and also ammunition. New Jersey is laying out some really tough gun legislation. California has passed some tough legislation, and they are continuing state by state to move with gun legislation to the point where it will be illegal to think about a gun. Also,
but I just don't understand this, because now you're talking about basically bullets, bullion. Next is going to be beans.
Yeah, no, we need to understand that time for preparing. If you're going to do that, if that's what the Lord leads you to do, is now. You won't be able to do it after something happens. And that if the Lord does lead you to prepare, we should do the best we can to prepare for ourselves, but not only that, for our families. And I'm going to reference this this is from Ephesians. I think Ephesians. And I was reading this earlier today. And this was, it just made me think of all the division that we see going on amongst believers, that I felt it was necessary to talk about it. It says in Ephesians chapter 25, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be a vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in spiritual meekness. considering thyself, lest you be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. If any man think of himself to be something when he is nothing, he is deceiving himself. And it goes on from there. To be a good teacher, to uplift each other. It says, this I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lusts of the flesh. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which these, it says adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, etc., murderers, are things, if you take part in, you will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meek, and temperance. Against such things is no law. But especially the part that spoke to me was, if we live in the Spirit, let us walk in the Spirit. And if a man be overtaken in fault, we which are spiritual restore to one in the spirit of meekness, and carry one another's burdens. I thought that was important.
No, I think so as well. I do. Wow. All right.
All right, we're going to go to phone calls here, and I know we got a lot of people on hold, and we're going to go, I think we got Long Island Dave. You've been on hold the longest. Thanks for your patience.
Hello?
Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to say. Hello?
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, I don't want to say how you doing because it ain't too great for anybody out there that knows the truth. But, again, I got to thank you two guys for speaking the truth and going out there and putting your life on the line. You, Steve Quill, I forget, Steve Emerson, all you guys. You guys really are watchmen, and you put your lives on the line. So, just wanted to say, just some little righteous anger, nothing really over the wall. Just about Obama going to Israel. First, he's first going to, I believe, Israel, right? And then he's going to the other places.
Yeah. Last time I looked here, we had Obama going to Israel. I think the date was March 20th.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the actual itinerary in terms of where he goes first.
Okay, let's see where he goes first, because usually you go to the worst place first, and then you go to the best last. That's me anyway. When I take vacations, you go someplace, I would go to the worst first, and then go to the best last. I don't know. Would you say that?
Okay.
Would you be the same way about that, Doug?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that works the same in diplomacy, but okay, in matters of state. But yeah.
I just stay away from the worst.
Yeah, I know. But
yeah,
if you had to go to a party and it was people that you didn't want to see, but then they had a party that you really wanted to, you know what I mean? You'd go to the worst first, and shake off the dust. Shake off the dust of Israel. Maybe spit on the ground in Israel as he leaves, and then, get on the flight and then go to what he really loves. But anyway, I got a new school prayer. I don't know, me with the poems. I found this one. Can I read it quick? Author unknown.
Oh, sure. All right.
Now I sit me down in school, where praying is against the rule. For this great nation under God finds mention of him very odd. If Scripture now the class recites, it violates the Bill of Rights. And any time my head I bow, becomes a federal matter now. Our hair can be purple, orange, or green. That's no offense. It's a freedom seen. The law is specific. The law is precise. Prayers spoken aloud are a serious vice. For praying in a public hall might offend someone with no faith at all. In silence alone we must meditate. God's name is prohibited by the state. We're allowed to curse and dress like freaks and pierce our noses, tongues, and cheeks. They've outlawed guns, but first the Bible. To quote the good book makes me liable. We can elect a pregnant senior queen and the unwed daddy, our senior king. It's inappropriate to teach right from wrong. We've taught that such judgments do not belong. We can get our condoms and birth controls, study witchcraft, vampires, and totem poles. But the 10 Commandments are not allowed. No word of God must reach this crowd. It's scary here, I must confess. When chaos reigns, the school's a mess. So, Lord, this silent plea I make, should I be shot, my soul please take. Amen.
Amen, Dave. How great is that? You know what? I just want to add something, or kind of add this to what you're saying, because people think, when you mention prayer in school specifically, people think that there's this wall of separation. And despite the claims of a lot of people, Jefferson, for example, in fact, he was the one that mentioned the wall of separation. It does not mean, and it was never meant to mean, the exclusion of people of faith from impacting, participating in, or shaping government, or even the studies of young people in schools. It referred rather to the limit of the federal government and of the government from exercising any authority in matters of religion. So the phrase, which you're talking about indirectly, the separation of church and state, was never used to the detriment of the people of faith until the Supreme Court picked it up back in 1947. But it's funny because one more thing, Dave, and I'll let you continue. Even in 1892, and this is something I found in doing some research earlier this week, there was a Supreme Court decision that said our laws and our institutions must necessarily be based on and embody the teachings of the Redeemer of mankind. It is impossible that it should be otherwise. And in this sense, and to the extent our civilization and our institutions are emphatically Christian, we are a Christian nation. And that, by the way, is from a unanimous, it's from a unanimous Supreme Court decision in 1892. And I thought that was just so amazing. And look how it's been redefined. So that poem, whoever wrote it, how great is that?
I don't know. Great. But I'll tell you, Doug, I'm just amazed at you and your son and every guest, Steve. Just you, Doug. You're amazing. You know so much. You're like an encyclopedia, and I gain so much wisdom and everything else from you. I can't put into words how much I appreciate you guys and you, Doug. I followed you even before Lori Roth. You were on some guy's show. You didn't last too long on it. I think there was something wrong with the person. Maybe Conan, was that the name? I'm not sure. But you were on that show before Lori Roth, but I don't think it was worth anything with him, whoever that person was. But when he went on Lori Roth, and anybody that ever came on here, I know there was some people in the chat or something like that saying you're something working for the government. I saw somebody put, no way, I know your heart and you know mine. And, you with the Lord, and, I really love you guys, and I ask for Jesus' protection over both of you, because I can't explain how much gratitude I got for you guys. You know what I am, and I'm a Catholic, and look, anybody out there, I'm not going to change for anybody. You could pray for me to see the light, whatever, if you want, but I'm not going to change it. Just like I'm not going to try to convert anybody. There's bigger things to boil or whatever out there. I know that the church, there's a lot wrong in the church, and it has to be purified. It certainly does. I met a priest that one time said to me, I don't believe in the devil, I don't believe that we have a God that would throw anyone in hell. I mean, this is unbelievable. I had other priests say things that I just like to talk to people, and I know exactly how people feel and everything like that, but I don't want to get into a big thing on that. But I was really shocked when I heard this thing yesterday, Doug, with the Pope stepping down. It like hit me like you said last night. Like, I really, really got like, whoa, like this is really getting, the dots is like connecting. How did you feel, Doug? I mean, can you?
Like somebody took a 2x4 and smacked me upside the head.
Yeah. And speaking of, and Dave, I'm not trying to be critical of you or what you said here about not believing in the devil, but really it doesn't matter what we believe.
I didn't say that.
No. Just to the statement of people not believing in the devil. Yeah.
A priest said that to me.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it's not what we believe, you know. That would be what I would say to the priest. It is what the scriptures say. It is what Jesus says.
Right.
And that's the only thing we can rely on.
Right.
And you know what's something? You know what's something, Dave? This is my own personal feeling. If it's not in the Bible, I mean, we can look at man's assessment or analysis of Scripture, but if it's not in the Bible, go to the Bible first, and everything else is secondary to what's in the Bible. So whether you're a Catholic or you're Protestant, look, it's the Bible.
You're totally correct. And I was stuck in on Sunday. I couldn't go to church. I was stuck in with the snow, and I was like, really, I'm going through hell over here in this place still, and no money and everything like that. But I had to go out and put John Hagee on my TV at 9 o'clock. He came on, and I sat in front of that TV for that 45 minutes to an hour listening to John Hagee say the word of God in the Bible. And boy, I'll tell you, I loved it. I felt the word coming into me. I felt so much better. I mean, I know that the Catholic Church don't get the message of the Bible out there. There's so many, I don't like to say this, there's so many pastors and priests that don't really preach the word and talk about sin. It's I know it's like you say, it's the money in the plate, and it's like, who's from out of town here, and I went to a church, and who's from out of town, and whose birthday is it today, and let's give a clap of hands, and I'm like, whoa, and these are the churches that I just basically I wipe my feet, and then I don't come back, and I search. But listen, anybody out there, I'm sorry if I offend anybody. Pray for me if you want to, but I'm not going to change. And let me just tell you, I stand up for you people. I have actually Catholics that come to me and say, well, if they don't believe the Catholics is the true church, and they say and I said, well, what about the Christians? I forget David Wilkinson, and I mentioned all these great people that passed away. I said, well, if they didn't belong to the Catholic Church, then they're basically saying that they're being condemned, and I'll stand up and fight. I'll say things. No, I don't think we have a Jesus is not going to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. Hey, my friend, we're up against a hard break.
Yes.
I just want
God
to
bless
say thank you very much for calling. God bless you.
Take care.
Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Doug and Joe Hagmann. It is the 12th day, February 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is Joe. We're right back.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have a long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com, or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Yeah, I probably should unmute myself when I do this, right? Let me add to that last commercial. For Hagmann and Hagmann listeners, you got just 2 more days to take advantage of the Freeze Dry Guy special. If you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the right-hand box for the Freeze Dry Guy. He's got 2 items, which one of them I got to tell you is to me is just fantastic. But anyway, 2 items: the chicken with rice long-range patrol ration entree. It's 100% freeze-dry food. It's only the finest ingredients are used. For 1 case, $106. And that's normally, I think, $140 or $132, I believe, somewhere in there. 20 pouches per case. That yields 20 ounces of fresh food per pouch. But what really got me was this no refrigeration required real ice cream. And I got to try this. It's an ice cream dessert. It looks like an ice cream sandwich. You eat it dry. It's really good. Normally $200 a case for 100 of them. On sale now for $150. Just tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you to get the discount. 2 days left of that. And I just want to say this too. If you haven't done so, speaking of great people, Granlund Firearms. That's Granlund Firearms. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the link in the upper right-hand corner. There you will find a box that says Granlund Firearms of British Columbia. Now, Carl and Lori Granlund are great people. They have a fantastic, just a tremendous store up in British Columbia, Campbell's River. If you're nearby, stop in and tell them Doug and Joe sent you. If you're not, visit them on the internet at GranlundFirearms.com. They've got hunting supplies. They've got survival supplies. They've got just a ton of things. Visit their website. Look at their pictures. Fantastic pictures, folks. Some really great stuff. Now, while you're there, sign the guest book, and once again, tell them you heard about them on our program. Hey, look, you know what? It gives us brownie points. Nothing else, just brownie points. But that's GranlundFirearms.com, GranlundFirearms.com.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Tuesday, February 12th, the night of the State of the Union address, as the usurper and thief is standing in front of the legislative branch, spewing lies and empty promises, all are coming out of his mouth on this day of political theater. But with that, we have a lot of people on hold, and we are going to go to the calls and get through as many as possible. We're going to go to Sheila. Thanks for holding, Sheila. You're live on Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys. I'm glad you took a spiritual bent here. I was doing a lot of thinking last night since the Pope resigned, and we know where that can lead as Christians here. I was thinking about the people, and Doug, last night I could feel the urgency in you and what you were trying to tell the people. And because of that, I was able to get up and go out in the room and talk to my kids after your program went off. But that's not why I called. There's a scripture here I want to read, and then there's a small testimony I want to tell. The reason why I want to tell it is because of everything that's going on around us. And it's going to get worse. We all know it. And this is everybody worldwide. We're all caught up in this mess with these people. But anyway, let me read this scripture, and I'm going to tell you this quick story. It's Isaiah 30, verse 19 to 21. O people of Zion, who live in Jerusalem, you will weep no more. How gracious he will be when you cry for help. As soon as he hears, he will answer you. Although the Lord gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, your teachers will be hidden no more. With your own eyes you will see them. Whether you turn to the right or turn to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. Now, this is where I want people to understand that God will talk to us directly, or he'll talk to us through the Word, or he'll talk to us through other people. And when my husband got sick, it was sudden, and he literally collapsed in my arms, and we both hit the floor, and he passed away.
Man.
Yeah, and it was a horrible, horrible thing, but I was able to get through everything. He was retired Navy. He had a beautiful viewing and whatnot. He was in uniform, but anyway, I had to get my house ready to get it on the market.
Sheila.
Yes.
Sheila, let me just say this to the people listening. You know, Sheila just shared something with all of us, and how dare we complain about having a bad day, or say, things, or just like kick a file cabinet because things aren't going right. Put yourself in Sheila's place. My goodness, can you imagine? Can you imagine what she went through?
Well, here was the thing. When that happened, God has a way of protecting us in this kind of thing. I was just like, I just went numb. I had to pretty much pry myself away from him to get up because I got MS. But anyway, after everything was all done, I had to get my home on the market because I was scared to stay there alone, and there was work that needed to be done in it. But my house was an open place where you could see the kitchen table from the living room and whatnot, and my husband always had a habit of sitting at the table reading something. And I found myself sitting there one day, and I had men in my house jackhammer down in my basement because my husband had wanted French drains put in there. So I'm sitting there, and the more I looked at that empty chair, the madder I was getting. And I'll tell you, I thought about drinking. I thought about drugging. And I thought, no, I'm just going to get up. I'm going to run as far and as fast as I can. I got to get away from this. And then I got really, really angry. And it probably lasted 2 minutes. I got really, really angry, and I jumped up, and I shook my fist at God for the first time. And I said, Lord, what am I going to do? He was my right arm and my right leg. And I just dropped to the floor. And I said, Lord, I can't do this. And I was crying. And he said, Sheila, I'm here. Go back to the viewing. Go back to the viewing. Go back to the funeral. So I laid there, and I went back to the viewing, and I was in a fog. And I got to see everything really clear, and there was 2 churches there, people from mine, people from my daughter. And I had a very close friend of mine that played guitar and sang, and she sang In the Garden because it was my husband's favorite song. And then she calls me that night, and she says, Sheila, I got a song I want to sing at Butch's funeral tomorrow. Can I do it? And I said, Trish, you can do whatever you want. So she said, okay. Well, she stayed up all night on the computer learning how to sing and play Peril on the Sea.
All right. Okay, guys, if you can hear us now, we should be back. Let me get my dad, and let me get him back on the line and reconnect with Troy. I don't know what happened there. Just kind of, I think that was on Troy's end, as it says you're down. I'm down? It says you're off. Let me try. I'm trying to call you now. And, no. If there's an option to join the call, hit join call. Call failed. Okay, let me go back here. Chat, can you guys hear us? In chat. Okay. Somebody said they could hear. You are back up online, and let me bring you back on. I'm calling you now.
There we go.
Okay, now.
Sorry about that.
Troy, if he is still up. No, he is down.
All right.
So that was on his end. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try this again. Okay, I don't see Sheila in the queue. We're going to go to Sherry in Oklahoma.
Sorry about that.
Sherry, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Okay. Hi. I was just kind of went to La La Land there, wait for the sound to come back.
We all did, actually.
Well, you've gone to a lot of subjects tonight, so my thoughts are kind of sound random here now, but do you guys remember the scripture in Revelation? You were talking earlier in the show about what's going on in Korea and maybe here, and it's been going on for years, but you know what I'm talking, things that are caused, things that men do.
Oh, yes.
Okay, in Revelation it says the kingdom of this world has become the kingdom of our Lord. There's two kingdoms. There's one of darkness and one of light. And Jesus will come back and reign forever when his kingdom takes over this kingdom. And then he goes on to say, and the nations were angry that his wrath has come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, and that he would give reward unto his servants and prophets, and them that fear his name. And the last little part of that verse is, destroy them which destroy the earth. I just thought of that scripture when you guys were talking about that. God is going to take care of every person, every little thing. This is his creation. And no country is innocent, no country. And no one has the right to destroy his creation. But he's coming back someday, and he's going to take care of those that destroy the earth. I know they don't believe it, and Satan has his plans, but, you know, what? Big deal.
Yeah, well, you know, let me ask you a question. If you were on the other side, the side of darkness, the side of Satan, knowing what Satan knows, how can you rationalize?
I think if it was a human being, I'd say, how stupid can you be?
Exactly.
But he's not stupid. Maybe he has, since he's the father of deception, maybe he's deceived himself, because his last act is going to literally fight the King of Kings when he comes. You know, he's going to have his minions gathered together, and he's going to actually try to fight Jesus Christ. And so, you know, we try to look at it with a sane mind. This devil has lost, I don't even know how to put it in human terms. He is just evil. evil
right.
to the core.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't ever want to even be close to the wrong side of that fight.
No, well, we can't walk in the middle of the two, and so we're not close because there's just as far as one is from the other as the east is from the west. If
right.
we're in the kingdom of light, we're not even close. But here's another scripture that His word is so comforting because we're in perilous times, we're in worried times, we're in people that haven't really got rooted and grounded. They're just being blown about, and it really gets to me. I wish everyone could just get into the word and get grounded. But first, and Joe, by the way, we must be reading the same book. I read those very same scriptures in Ephesians today. That is so funny.
Wow.
But this is in 1 Peter, the God of all grace, who has called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus. After that you have suffered a while, see, that's a given. After that you have suffered a while, he will make you perfect and establish you and strengthen you. And the contrast there is we suffer a while, but we enter into his eternal glory. I mean, it's just, I just hope people get some comfort out of that because bad times are coming.
Well, to that I say, how could you look at today's headlines, look at the news, do the in-depth analysis of what's taking place, and not turn to the Bible or not turn to your beliefs? It would be a very lonely
we see a lot
walk.
of people that don't because they don't know. You know, a blind person doesn't know what he's not seeing. They don't know any better. And we all follow our Father. Whoever our Father is, that's who we follow. And they keep trying. It's a little heartbreaking, really. They keep trying to do it in man's toils, man's labor. And see, that's a lie. That's deception in itself, to think that they can make things better. And they can't. And so if they could just know the God of all peace. Anyway, that's...
Amen.
Sherry, what an excellent call and excellent words of inspiration.
You hit
it right on the money. Unless there's anything else you'd like to
Well,
add.
no, just really, to everyone out there that is a Christian, keep up a prayer life. You've got to pray. I think sometimes we go along through our days and we think everything is, we're making it okay. We're not hit too hard by what's going on. We read about it, or we know somebody maybe, and we think, well, we'll tag up it before we go to sleep. We'll say, thank you, Lord. But it's going to take so much more than that. We've got to pray, pray, pray. And anyway, praying for you guys too. So I enjoy the program.
And us for you as well, and all of our listeners. God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Sherry.
And Joe, I just have to ask you this and kind of throw this out as an open question. Tonight, the State of the Union, we've got Obama talking about
reading or talking?
Reading, talking, mumbling, drooling, whatever he's doing. But we take a couple of steps back. Look at yesterday. Look at the announcement about the Pope resigning. Look at the
lightning hitting the Vatican right afterwards.
And then even
look at the state of the world, the economy, and dozens and tons of nations. And I say tons. I mean, we're talking complete economic ruin, or on their way there in many different nations. The nations that aren't in those positions are currently being invaded by NATO and the U.S., like the 35 nations in Africa, the whole Middle East, whether it is through defense contractors or actual troops on the ground or drone strikes plaguing their communities. I mean, we have a world in peril, in chaos.
Have we ever seen the level of chaos, and that's a good word, the level of chaos that we're seeing right now? Have we ever seen the symbolism that we're seeing right now? To me, the signs like you mentioned, the lightning striking, and of course when the Pope sent out that dove, and it was immediately attacked by a seagull.
So yeah, for me, being on the verge of 30, no. Now, most of those years, I wasn't paying attention to world affairs, until 9/11 happened. Then I started to get involved to a degree of paying attention, at least. But no, I have not seen, a third of what we're seeing now happening all at once. The economic issues, the wars, the natural disasters.
There's a quickening.
Yeah,
there's a quickening.
And it says that will happen.
Right. And I would, like I said yesterday, I just hope, wherever you are at spiritually, and as we are a news program, if you will, that combines news with through a biblical worldview, how can you not look at what's going on today and hit your knees, if you're physically capable of hitting your knees before you go to bed or when you wake up, and just repenting and then praying for because look at how fast things are coming.
Yeah.
Folks, please listen to what we're saying, because there's so much white noise out there. The State of the Union speech, it doesn't matter what. He could have stood up there and read a chapter from Gone with the Wind. It doesn't matter, because I really think a lot of this is out of our hands. But that said, we have to know what's important and how to act and how to play our positions, because it's so important. But it just really, like yesterday, it really hit me like a 2x4.
And remember this: no matter what's happening in the world with the current events being so overwhelming at times, frustrating, the title of the show tonight: Tired,
Broken, Hungry.
Broken and hungry and frustrated. But don't let that take away your joy. Don't let that take away your happiness.
Oh, no, it shouldn't.
Faith that we have in the Lord and what He has planned for us should give us exceeding joy, beyond measure of anything happening in the real world now. Now that's
right, but
something we need to practice, and I'll be the first to admit it's something that I lack a lot of times. I do let the earthly news and different things temporarily take away my joy or my peace, and I'll get angry.
But look at Sheila, though. How quickly, in 1 minute's time, how quickly your world can change. What's important to you 5 minutes ago suddenly becomes at the bottom of your list. And that to me is so, and we're all walking through and living on borrowed time. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And when I say borrowed time, I mean, it's not our time. It's our names are written in the book of life, but I don't know. I guess the older that I get, the more I look back and say, something, I might have been reckless back in my 30s and 20s and 30s and even my 40s, but boy, it's so important. I don't know. It's just so important right now to be right with God and to be right with your family and to be right on the right side of the fight.
Yeah, most importantly, get that personal relationship with the Lord, get in the Bibles, and start your understanding from there. We're moving on the phones. I want to thank everybody for holding and being patient. Area code 303, we're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
You are up. What is on your mind?
Hey, guys. My name is Scott Free. I'm calling from Colorado. Sorry about that.
Hi, Scott.
Bless you guys. Thank you for your email earlier, Doug.
Not a problem, sir. Got that handled, okay? Things are at work.
I know you do. I can respect in your discretion.
All right.
There's just so much going on, and like you just said, it's right that we get right with Christ. It's absolutely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most important, in my opinion.
Hearing Sherry's story, my heart goes out to her and my prayers go out to her too. I know the Lord works in mysterious ways in all of our lives, but we need to know one thing for certain, that He is our Lord. He's in control. I mean, I've jumped all around. All this conspiracy stuff can get maddening. There's only one truth, and His name is Jesus.
How right you are.
Yep.
How right He is.
Exactly. And you know, while it's important for us to recognize signs, checkpoints in time, perhaps
seasons,
I think that's important for us to understand where we are and where things are, because there is a level of responsibility that we have and to prepare for things. So we look at these things, attempt to apply them to the templates or to the Bible, and then from that we have a template of where we're at in general with things. So, but you're right. At the core of everything is our eternal salvation, and I know, Scott, you understand this so well.
It's all going to come down around us. Everything we look at is going to burn. I mean, this earth isn't going to be here very much longer. But our eternity is so important. Again, we can get lost in the minutia of North Korea and South Korea and China, and the commies are coming to get us, and, they're going to take our guns now. Again, God's in control. I mean, we can sit around and chase our tails. There's one thing for certain. There's places in this world that He's not worshipped, and I want to bring His word there. I want to turn away from my life and my way. That's not important anymore. This is. I can really feel if there's a quickening. People serious, and I don't take their intent serious at all, because there's a place that He's not worshipped, and He should be worshipped everywhere in this world.
Yeah.
Every knee will bow. Every tongue will confess Christ Jesus is the Lord. I really appreciate the work you two are doing. I bless you and your family. I bless Steve Quayle and everybody I can't think of right now. I pray for everybody out there doing their own thing, that discernment comes over them and they start dreaming dreams. And again, we all have His work to do.
We do. Scott, you're a great friend of the program. I want to say thank you very much for your words of wisdom. And stay in touch.
In Jesus' name, bless you guys. Thank you very much.
In Jesus' name.
Bless you, Scott. Thank you for the wonderful call. Again, right on the money. With where our focus needs to be, and that is in the Word, in the Scriptures. And if it's not, then we need to re-examine our priorities.
Well, and I think, too, it does add that important dimension to the news that we're seeing unfold on television, the news that we hear on the radio, the news that we see on the Internet.
Yeah.
It adds that important dimension.
We're going to go to Skype caller, Lexwell. Lexwell, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Very well.
That's great. Trying to turn this TV down. It's just not working for me. Hey, I called in and I wanted to talk about that whole alien invasion, if you guys had a few minutes.
Sure.
All right. How you doing tonight, Mr. Hagmann and Mr. Hagmann?
Well, we're doing very well. Anxious to hear about the alien invasion you're talking about. You're talking about illegal aliens or sky aliens?
We'll talk about the sky aliens.
All right.
Because that usually excites more people's mind. I try to start small when I talk to you guys because I don't want to go off into a deep tangent or anything. I called last week, talked to you guys about police officers and the badges and the oath.
Right.
Well, I thought about a scenario before and I put it up on YouTube, and basically the scenario is Mr. Hagmann, I know you have children, but when when you ask somebody to talk to their kids, and you use Hollywood movies, for instance, and you talk to them about movie scenarios, and say the Avengers, because this is the best way to come across with this. So if you talk to someone with kids and have them ask their kids if there was an alien invasion and the governments of the world came together and said, as mankind, we could change our DNA to fight off this alien force, and how many of your kids would sign up to protect the Earth?
Well, that's an interesting thought, because if the people do have a perceived threat, and we'll use 9/11 as an example, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, terrorism is everywhere to the point where we have to start multiple wars in multiple countries, and take away the rights of Americans. Now that's a small example, where now looking on the world scene.
But he's talking about changing the DNA. I'm not sure.
Well, no, I understand what he's saying.
Well, you got to look at the movie of the Avengers. Now, listen, we've been, as males, our soap opera has been comic books. If we tend to watch those, men go into sports are usually comics. So when these comic books hit movie theaters, you see these superpowers. The ability to be better than the average guy. You have the Hulk that's irradiated by nuclear power, that changes into this huge beast when he's mad. You have Captain America that's taken this gas, this scrawny kid that's taken this gas, and now with this gas he accelerates in strength and speed, and
right.
If children, no matter the age, have the ability to be tricked, won't this be a trick to be used? I mean, we've already seen the outcome of it with the idea of Hollywood plots. This is on the screen. This does make kids say, "Ooh, I want to be like Spider-Man. I want to get bit by a mutated spider."
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. Well, we'll continue. Go ahead in your thoughts.
Well, it's just to say, what do we talk to our kids about, and how far does the fantasy go? Because we've gotten to the age where we see the Marine that had his limbs taken away, and he's now replaced with robotic limbs. We can see that all these things are lining up in place for this to actually happen.
All right. Yeah, I can see that. I think though, I'll tell you what, I can't imagine a scenario, and listeners, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't really imagine a scenario where I would sit down with a child or grandchild and advocate, like, a change in DNA, whether it's, you could be like Superman, Spider-Man. Oh, sure, as children, as young children, who hasn't tried to fly like Superman with a cape and jump off like a porch step, hopefully, as opposed to like a garage roof. But how real is that today? Are we that far gone?
Well, I don't know if we are as a society, if we're that far gone, but I feel as corporations we're that far gone. I mean, when you look at some of the things that they're doing, conception is too. In England and other places, they have, conception of three members now.
Conception. Oh, okay.
The test tube babies now have
right,
2 women parents and 1 male, and vice versa, 2 male parents and 1 woman. To spite God, as it says, in the Book of Jashir.
Right. Well, we could spend.
And this is something we're going to be revisiting with Tom Horn. He's definitely going to be going over this on Thursday. A lot more in-depth than when he was on last time, as we see the events increasing and the things happening with the Pope And if you watch his trailer, Exo Vatican, there's a 3-minute trailer on his new book, Exo Vatican, where he goes inside the Lucifer telescope that is Vatican-owned, and goes inside their Space Observatory Center and says it's not what we believe, it's what they're preparing for. So that should be interesting. And if you have any specific questions you'd like us to ask, send us an email.
Yeah.
Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. Our names are right there on the page, and that'll open up an email thing for you to send to us, and we'll ask those on air.
Yeah, because that's really a subject more suited to Tom Horn in the discussion of his book. I really think that's a discussion for then. But God bless you, my friend, man. That's interesting concepts, though.
Yeah. Thanks for your call. We're going to move on.
Bless you both.
Bless you.
God bless you. You have a great night.
You too.
All right, we're going to go to Lucy in Tennessee. Lucy, you're on.
How are you feeling, Lucy? You're sick.
I've had the flu, and I really hardly can talk. But I just felt very strongly I needed to share a scripture, so maybe I can make it through it.
All right.
Romans 1, verse 37 through 39. Romans 8, verse 37 through 39. Yet in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. And I just felt strongly that we need to know that none of this evil that the world is plotting around us, none of it can separate us from our Lord Jesus. Neither death, nor life, nor anything. And that is so precious.
Oh, it is.
So,
wow. And I know, Lucy, that you're not feeling well and you've got the flu and you can barely talk. And for you to call in and share that scripture with us is very special. We really appreciate that. We will pray for you to get better. I can tell you from experience, it's not fun to have the flu.
Yeah, you and many other people, our listeners, even Nathan Liao is coming back from the flu. Dr. Elizabeth Matkey, she says she's going through some illnesses right now, and you guys are all in our prayers, and we'll continue to be.
Oh, thank y'all, and I just praise the Lord for y'all, and I just thank Him. I thank Him, and I thank Him for everybody on this call.
All right.
Such a blessing.
Indeed, Lucy, get some rest, get into bed, cover up, take some vitamin C, raw honey with lemon in it if you can. Get yourself better, and
okay.
God bless you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Lucy.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, the illness, flu, virus, whatever's going around is really kicking a lot of people's butts.
But I got to tell you, I believe in the power of prayer, because I'll tell you one thing. I know people have been down for months. I mean, weeks anyway. And I was lucky. I was down for about a week. It was a rough week, but still. So I believe in the power of prayer.
Yeah. Moving on the phones, we're going to go to 706. 706, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, this is Tom. I'm calling from Augusta.
Hi, Tom.
Just want to thank you guys for all that you do. And I was particularly intrigued with you talking about Dr. Judy Wood earlier in the program. And she's been a hero of mine for quite some time, and that would be wonderful if you could ever get her on your show, because she understands that day better than most others, for sure. Yeah. And I believe in faith, and at the same time, I believe in the fact that we live in this world, and for us to better understand the whole spiritual realms of things, we need to understand a little bit about the world around us as well, and how we are being tricked, and the chicanery that goes on around us all the time. And she explains that very well, and explains a lot of the other cover-ups. There are cover-ups to cover-ups on 9/11, and she does a wonderful job of explaining that. And so that would be great if you could ever.
Yeah, she's going to be. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, she'll be on with us this month on the 21st.
Oh, fantastic!
Now,
I'll be.
One thing about this, and it's pending verification, but she is the presenter of the information. The information she has, Pete Santilli, who she kind of works close with, who's got his own show, will be on with her, I believe. Okay, and what we're going to try to do is do a video, or rely heavily on video. Now, I understand people listening to this on radio stations and via BTR won't benefit from this, but she will present some visual images to demonstrate what she's talking about, because it is kind of difficult to understand without the images. So
yeah, if you see the images in slow motion, yeah. For example, the antenna at the top of the one tower, the antenna itself is probably 20 stories high. In slow motion, you see it fall, and then it just slowly disappears. It's no longer a part of this three-dimensional reality. And it's amazing the things that she brings up that others are not willing to even discuss.
One thing I want to say, if I can interject here, I had a conversation with somebody inside the intelligence industry about Dr. Judy Wood, and I said, because before I invited her on, and I said, how close is she to the truth? And I was met by a period of silence, and my source said, have her on.
Yeah, that's right. She is very close, and I would challenge you to ask her about her not association, but if you know Dr. Stephen Jones, he brought out the whole AE911truth.org, and that was my introduction to all of this probably 6 or 7 years ago. And they told a fairly compelling story, but then you find out that Stephen Jones was the one to dispute the topic of cold fusion, which is now called LENR, or low energy nuclear reaction. And Dr. Judy Wood will tell you that had to have been a part of that. And if you get a chance, be sure to ask her about Building 6, because they talk about Building 1 and Building 2 and Building 7 a lot.
And Building 5.
Rarely is anything talked about Building 6. And Building 6, there's a semicircular vertical hole from sky to ground, about half circle on the building, and then there is a whole circle that goes about 20 to 30 feet into the ground, and the entire Earth is gone. And I don't think jet fuel is going to do that.
No, I know what you're talking about. And it's very odd when you see Building 7, the 47-story skyscraper, fall into its own footprint when there is minimal damage. And then you look at the buildings surrounding the World Trade Center. Building 7 was further away than Buildings 5 and 6.
Right.
Yet Building, I think 5, like you said, has a hole right in the middle of it, going all the way down. But the part of the structure is still there, as well as Building 6. in other buildings. There's a lot of things that have been overlooked.
A really good question to ask people is, if things are a controlled demolition, as some of the 9/11 truthers would have you believe, if you just compact cement and steel going down, you're still going to have about 20 to 25 stories of debris. In some places, there's 6 inches. I mean, the buildings are simply gone. They have disappeared.
You know what, caller? I have to tell you this. I visited 9/11, and because of my contact in law enforcement, I was able to walk the area, and it was disturbing for me to see. But at the time, I wasn't paying attention. But one thing that strikes me now, and by the way, I was not allowed to take any camera equipment with me, which I probably should have at the time realized. Well, wait a minute, there's something wrong with that. But one thing that really, to this day, really disturbs me, in retrospect, there is not enough debris. Where did the debris go? I mean,
right.
You know, and people don't understand what I'm saying. And one more thing too, I want to throw in here. People will say, and I've gotten a couple of emails since we've talked about this, about having Dr. Judy Wood on. People asking why are you talking about 9/11? Why go back to 9/11? Well, don't you, caller, look at this 9/11 and the things that are going on today, and even before 9/11, as just one continuous crime scene? That if we ask questions and get answers for that event and other events, we'll better understand what's going on today. I mean,
I totally do, and I think that for me, one of my passions is to get people to see that partisan politics is simply a opportunity for confusion, and an opportunity to divide the masses. And when we see that from administration to administration to administration, the same agenda continues to take place and move forward. And I think if we really want to unite as humanity and as God followers, we have to get rid of the lies and quit dividing ourselves and unite as one people again. Everything they call them the power to be, everything they've done has been an attempt to fragment and fragment and fragment humanity, and it's time for us to coalesce, and time for us to see the truth, and surely a time to pray. But I think the opportunity for prayer, it's almost like if you want to win the battle, you have to understand who your enemy is, and that's they've done. I have to say, they've done a wonderful job of confusing people, of putting people into a state of fear, and so on. But it's really time to discard that, to look at the real facts. In psychology, they talk about something called normalcy bias.
Oh yeah.
And you can show people pictures of a crime scene. You can show the weapons. You can show the swords. You can show bullets, and people will say, "But my government would never do that to me." And that's normalcy bias. And we have to show people enough information to get them over the top of their normalcy bias, and then we can really unite as one society, one group, one nation, one globe, and show our love for God, and without division.
Very well said.
Yeah. Amen, caller.
Yeah, very well said. And so be sure to tune in to February 21st, I believe it is.
I will be there, and I will definitely be there for Tom Horn on the Thursday night, too. I'm very much looking forward to that. I think that we don't know the whole story about why the Pope has stepped down by any means. I have my theories, but I'm surely anxious to see Tom Horn's perspective on that.
Absolutely, and what comes after? What can we expect next? So
yeah,
absolutely,
and the why behind it as well.
True.
Yeah,
now that's going to be from 9 to midnight on Thursday, as opposed to 8 to 11. So we're going to keep you up an extra hour that night.
Great, wonderful.
All right, my friend.
I will look forward to it.
All right,
thanks for go and thank you so much.
All right, sir.
God bless you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
We got a few minutes left. We're going to get one more phone call in. We got Jan in Texas. Jan, welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Jan, you can close us out.
Hello, gentlemen. The manhunt that was over a few hours ago in California, where another policeman was murdered today, Danny Colson, I believe that's the FBI man. He, as the cabin was burning, he said, "Let it burn. There's no more evidence needed." Do you agree with that statement? And I do. I'm so sorry for the loss of life.
I'll field the question about the evidence. As an investigator, you can never have enough evidence. So I don't agree with letting it burn, unless, of course, there would be a direct threat to the firefighters, which at that point it was my understanding that there was not. So to let it burn and destroy potential evidence to me is a crime. But that's just me. Now, my wife disagrees with me. She says, look, it is what it is. Okay. Now, I respect her opinion, and I understand where she's coming from. However, I don't agree with it. So, what about you, Jen? What do you think?
It did not sit right with me at all. And I have one more comment on Danny Colson. Joe, do I have a moment?
Yep, sure. We got a few minutes.
September 11th, 2001, in the Dallas area, there were, from DFW, where's the airport area, into Dallas, was a train that had two Middle Eastern men who were very agitated, speaking obviously in their native tongue. They had cash on them, box cutters. They were taken in for investigation, and 2 or 3 days later they were let go. Danny Colson said, no problem.
Okay. Now, I recall something about this.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't Danny Colson involved in the investigation of the Oklahoma City bombing as well?
Oh, probably.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. I just remember that about not setting right with me either. So I guess I have a problem with this man. But anyway, I thank you for your input on that. It didn't set right with me, and and I'm so sorry about the policeman today.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. Wow. Well.
Okay. I'm
Thanks
looking forward to Judy Wood. Okay. Good night.
Take care.
God bless you. Wow.
3 hours went real fast.
It did. And I hope, folks, that my audio sounds better. And if it does, that'll work. I don't know.
People have been saying, yes, that you do sound better.
All right. That's great. It's kind of a hit and miss kind of approach that we're taking.
Look, we need to be in prayer. We need to be lifting each other up in prayer. And we need to be in prayer for those that are lost or have lost their way. We need to be uniting under Jesus. And I'm not saying we need to, agree or have a kumbaya session, as my dad says, but as many callers pointed out tonight, no matter what's happening in this earth, the Lord is our number one priority. Our answers come from Him and Him only, and that's the right way to do things. And I just want to leave you with that. We'll see you tomorrow.
Folks, hit your knees tonight and repent and get right with God.
Yeah. Tomorrow night, we'll be here from 8 to 11. Then we'll be on Lori's Talk News Radio, here on Blog Talk Radio, immediately following. Hope all of you can join us then. God bless each and every one of you, and we'll see you tomorrow.